Hey, badass business owners, I have a question for you. Can you be a successful small business owner and be an introvert at the same time? Well, I'm here to tell you, yes, you absolutely can. Now, for you extroverts, one of the things that comes so easy for you is you can walk up to anybody at any given time and you just start talking to them about what's going on, and you can talk about your business and everything else. When it comes to networking, you love it. You thrive off of it. You can go to networking events because, once again, you're in your element and you feed off of the energy of other people. Because see, an introvert and an extrovert, the biggest difference isn't necessarily that do you want to get in front of people, do you not? It's where you get your energy from. And for a lot of folks, when they go to an event with a lot of people, trust me, the last thing they want to do is going up to random strangers and saying hi. Those are my introverts. Those are my people. You see, I'm an introvert. And throughout the years, one of the things that's always been funny is I've had to take different tests and whatnot, especially when I worked for Home Depot. And I would always come up as an introvert, and people were like, no way, there's no way that you're an introvert. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I wouldn't want to be around any of you people or any people if I had my chance. And that doesn't mean I don't like them. It's just people drain me. See, extroverts get energy from people, right? And introverts, when we're around people, we get drained. Our energy is drained. We actually fill up our tanks when we are by ourselves. So to us, one of the things that we're not a fan of is getting in front of groups of people. Well, when you have a small business and you're in those early stages, especially when you have to get out there and you have to talk to people and you have to network, I know it's not fun. I know you don't want to do it. And matter of fact, I did my first networking, it probably was 5 years ago that I went to an actual networking event for my business. And I knew half the people in the room, and I still was not a fan of doing it. For 2 years, I tortured myself in this. And it was great. I can see the total benefits of networking. And I think that if you're the type of person that really likes people, networking is wonderful for you. Now, do I think introverts should shy away from this and not do networking? No, I do think that you should try it at least for a year, because it will put you out of your comfort zone a little bit. And even in that 1 year in your local community, you're going to be able to get people to know your business, because it does get easier every week after you meet, or however often that networking does, because you get to know more of the people. So instead of having nobody to kind of go up to, you kind of have onesie twosies and you start to know these people a little bit better. I think the only reason I survived is because, like I said, I knew half of them, so I knew who I could go to at least have some dialogue and some conversation. Even though I knew I needed to know the other people because they didn't know what I did. But it at least kind of made it easier because the other person would usually pull them in, and we would start having that conversation. And you also can tell who your fellow introverts are, because they're also kind of off to the side with that deer in the headlight look, like, why am I here? What am I doing? And sometimes it's a little easier to come up to them because they're kind of feeling exactly what it is that you're doing. So being an introvert doesn't mean you can't be successful, because introverts have some other great things that they bring to the table. As extroverts, they're easily distracted and pulled away by other people. It's really easy to get involved in a conversation and just sitting there in silence and working on their business. What I have found, the people who work that struggle with the working on the business piece are typically the extroverts, because the extroverts just want to get out there and they want to do what it is that they do for the most part, and, get out there with the people and all that other stuff, where introverts are perfectly fine sitting by themselves, working on their business and doing what they need to do. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be bad with customers. I think I'm great with customers. I try really hard to have great customer service. I was forced into that, if you will, early on in my career. And, I can say hi to people when I walk past them. I just am going inside going, don't ask me a question. Don't ask me a question, because that's what it is. So when they do ask, obviously I'm going to help them. Don't have a problem with that. But that's what's screaming inside of an introvert's head. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't get any easier. You're going to spend your whole life with that. I'm going to be 60 years old. I know that's crazy for a lot of you. But what's going to happen is I've really been thinking through a lot of things through life, and I realized that, there's some habits I have now that I've always had and what it's tied to. And when it comes to this introvert piece, yes, I've learned to be better than I used to be, but that natural fear, that natural thing inside, I don't necessarily know if it's fear, but it never gets easier necessarily to be stuck in a room full of people that you don't really know. So when it comes to being an introvert, you just kind of are navigating life differently. Now, I know I'm talking a lot about introverts because you extroverts also are having your own challenges, if you will. Because remember, like I said, you don't like to work on your business. You don't like that quiet time, that downtime. Because once again, that's not what's feeding your energy. When you're working alone on something, you are draining your energy. So I think one of the things for both people is figuring out how can you get the most done in your business during those times when you are feeling the most energy, because and finding somebody who can complement you that way. For some of you, you've got a right-hand person. It could be a business partner, but in most cases, you guys are solo. So if you can find somebody that can be on your team or somebody that you can talk to that could possibly maybe help offset some of the other stuff. For example, I know some introverts, when it comes back to that networking, if they've got somebody on their team or somebody that's a friend or somebody that can represent their business, they have them go because they love being the extrovert and they're the ones that love going out there, shaking hands, kissing babies. The business gets out there without necessarily the owner doing it. And for some of you, if you're an extrovert, when it comes time to sit down and, just go through stuff all by themselves, they have somebody that loves to do that piece so they can go out and be the face of the business. So even in my bookkeeping side of the business, I have somebody that I work with on it, and she has no problem being out there networking and saying hi to people and everything else. And I'm like, you go for it. I'll do the stuff behind the scenes, which is kind of ironic when you think about the fact that I have a podcast and I have this YouTube channel that I talk to people all day long, but there's not like a room full of people. I'm just talking to you. Yes, you, the one that's listening or watching right now, because all I do is I talk to one person, and that is you. And so it's kind of interesting how we can play mind games sometimes with what we're doing. And some of you have chosen businesses that actually complement what it is that you do. If you're an extrovert, you sometimes will pick businesses that put you in the public. And for those of you that are introverts, you tend to pick ones where it's more one-on-one, because I don't think we ever get away from customers. But if you can deal with one person one-on-one, or, hey, I'm talking to my dog people out there, you don't get that. You get to talk to animals, and that's way more fun than talking to people. That's perfect introvert type of stuff, because those dogs and those cats and those other animals, they're being nice and kind and loving and feeding you energy, right? A little different type of energy. But, at the end of the day, I think you can be successful whether you're an introvert or you're an extrovert. I think it's being honest with yourself, with what your strengths are. When I got into selling real estate and becoming a real estate agent years ago, 15 years ago, I had to make that decision because I am not a shaking hands, kissing babies, get out there kind of that type of agent. I immediately started working on how am I going to build my online presence? And I really focused on that piece. How do I get my name out there? How do I create this online presence to where people can find me more than me going out trying to find them? And is it slower doing it that way? Absolutely. Do you have to really have a plan? Absolutely. But it worked. You know what? Majority of my clients nowadays, when I have real estate, it's either because they're a past client and they got the great customer service that we wanted, or through referrals type of thing. But if they're new, most of the time they came through my online presence that I built over the years. Because I knew I wasn't going to be the type of person that was going to go out and go meet them. That just isn't my thing. And I think you have to be realistic, whether you're introvert or extrovert. I think you have to be more realistic as to what feels comfortable for you and where are those strengths. So you can build your business based off of that and how you're going to get clients. Because that is probably by far, I would think, the toughest piece of leaning into what it is that you do. I do think that all of us have to lean a little bit into the uncomfortable, but I think if you can really figure out what your thing is, then you go for it. I mean, I think the people that have really built great online presence tend to be more introverted. Not saying extroverts don't, because if an extrovert has a great online presence, it's because somebody else did it. More than likely, they didn't do it themselves. When you talk to a business owner who created it themselves and for the most part ran with it, more than likely they're probably an introvert. And some of you out there are laughing right now because you know that is true for you. whereas somebody who is extrovert, they're just going to go out there right away and start, like I said, shaking those hands, kissing those babies kind of a thing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think that if a lot of people think, oh, introvert, they must be shy, they must be hiding in their basement, they don't ever want to meet people, and that's not necessarily what all introverts are. Are some introverts like that? Absolutely. But not all extroverts are out there, just getting in people's faces and out there loving on people and everything else. A lot of us fall somewhere in between. What you want to know is the energy level, because it's what drains you. When I get home at the end of the night, for all of my working career, I'm exhausted because I've been in front of people almost the entire day. And it's kind of like being on, quote unquote, on, if you will, because you're having to put out this energy to be this person that doesn't feel as comfortable for yourself. And to me, I always took it as a compliment when people would argue with me, whether I was an extrovert or an introvert, because that meant that I did not show that when I was out there. But I definitely felt it on my way home, starting when I got in my car. I mean, oh my gosh, I love my car time because I get energy. And when people go, oh, I'll drive with you. No, it's okay. Because people don't understand. I love my alone time in my car. I always have. I traveled a lot for work. And to me, that is where I get my energy back, right? Whether I'm sitting in silence, whether I'm listening to something, it doesn't really matter. But my energy level is coming back up for the next thing. And when I started working from home, I found I didn't have that time. So I'm even more protective of what little car time that I get, that I like to be by myself as much as possible so I can kind of have that same feeling and whatnot. But at the end of the day, can you be successful as an extrovert? Yes. Can you be successful as an introvert? Yes, you can be successful no matter which one you are. It's really understanding how to lean into your strengths and how do you work with those weaknesses, because you're going to have to still work with them. There's no way you cannot see people. You cannot be in front of people and run a successful business. You might graduate to that down the road where you can pull yourself out of the business. But to get it going, there is a level of you're going to have to get in front of people. But how you can get those people can be a lot of different ways. Like I said, whether you want to do it from an online standpoint, how do you make these connections with people that they have such a great experience with you that they want to refer you. Go back to the real estate stuff. What I said is, I have great relationships with a lot of my past people, but I'm horrible at keeping them. They're like, oh, you're going to have to come over for parties. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do this. And in my head, I'm like, no, I won't be over for any of those things. And it has nothing to do with them. I like them. In some cases, I love them. They're great people. It's just my uncomfortableness, my introvertness will not let me keep doing that. So have I lost out on some people? Probably, but I'm okay with that. But a lot more people remember the experience that they had with me to where they come back years later when they are selling or buying, or if they want to trust somebody with their family. So it really isn't so much about that piece as much as, do they feel they can trust you with their next purchase or with their family or whoever they refer you to? You're not going to go, oh, Tammy, that's good time, Tammy. Yeah, they'll have fun. They'll laugh. They'll joke because, as you know, I like to joke. I like to have fun. But I'm not the party person that's going to be going over there. And there's some agents that do. You know what? Their clients travel and come down and do these things, and they have parties and they love it. And I'm just like, oh my God, that would be torturous to me. So I think everybody's a little different. So this episode's been a little bit different than most of the other ones, but I think it's just important that we all recognize that we all have these differences in our personality types and what feeds us energy and what drains us from energy, but everybody can be successful. It doesn't matter if you're that introvert, if you're that extrovert. I think it really is about leaning into your strengths and figuring out how can you leverage those opportunities that you have, because they're, I wouldn't say defects, but they're things that just aren't your thing. And I think you got to sometimes try them, see if you can make them work, or find another workaround to identify that it's still a good thing. Like I said, I did not like going to the networking, not because I didn't like the people. I love the people. It wasn't because I didn't see it as valuable. I see networking as highly valuable. It just was very uncomfortable. And over the course of the 2 years, while it did get easier, it just wasn't my thing. It just didn't bring me the joy that I wanted to have, and I couldn't represent myself the way I probably needed to. But I have watched a lot of people send other individuals who are more extroverted to those, and they're able to get tons of business and stuff like that. You know, like I said, you just work a little bit differently of how you're going to try to get those leads and how you're going to build that online presence and that follow-up stuff, and, you know, just lean into what it is that your strengths are. And anybody can build a business, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or somewhere in between. Just wanted to have that conversation because I know there's some people out there that are always wondering, I just don't know if this is for me. I just can't get out there. I just can't do this and I just can't do that. And you don't have to necessarily do those things. You know, should you try those things? Yes. Will they get easier? Yes. Will they ever feel perfect for you? No, they won't. But you can find a way to use that to your advantage, especially more so in the beginning when you're trying to get that business up and off the ground. Then you can kind of tweak and pull back a little bit. But all right, I'm done rambling on all this, and I hope this has helped some of you that are out there. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Just know that you can be successful no matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert. I think everybody has that potential to really crush it with their business. And I don't want you to use that as an excuse not to drive your business to the highest levels that you can get it, because there's always ways to make it work. All right, with that, I'm out of here, and I will talk to you next time. Bye for now.